Hey everyone, Nicole, and today I'm here to talk about my reading taste growth. I've started this YouTube channel almost 5 years ago and I have a lot of data that I've put into an Excel file, and today I'm going to try to analyze it and see if there is a pattern in the way I pick or read books. I think in general there is a difference between a regular reader and a reader that creates content for the reading community on whatever platform, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, any blogger platform. For example, you would notice that most bloggers and booktubers are reading the same book at the same time, which correlates with the date this book is coming out, because it's important to stay on the top of your game and always bring fresh new content. And sometimes it also correlates with the marketing activities that the publishers are doing at the moment. For example, sending out arcs or doing a blog tour for a book. I've never participated in blog tours or cover reveals. It's not exactly my thing. When I receive an arc of a book, I usually read it a little later, which I know is a shitty thing to do because they expect you to give them some sort of an exposure, negative or positive or neutral. They just want to get the title out there. I cannot force myself to do booktube not on my own terms because it's a hobby for me. I always wanted to be a writer first, an author, and this is not it. This is just being a social media person, which I am fed up with at my regular job. As you may know, I've always worked in PR, marketing, social media marketing, so it's not something I want to bring into my hobbies, which is a little bit ironic because I do YouTube. But somehow when you actually put effort into it, make marketing plans and schedule posts and videos, it feels a little bit more tiring and a little bit more like a job, which we're trying to avoid on this channel. I also think that there are going to be a lot of similarities between all the people's first reading years after joining booktube, because when I joined booktube I bought so many books that I actually disliked because everyone seemed to love them. Knowing what your reading tastes are is something that is coming with experience. At first you just pick books that are hyped. They don't necessarily sound good, but everyone else likes them, so you're supposed to like them as well. I've bought so many books that I had to get rid of because I just didn't find them enjoyable, and that's completely normal. I always recommend people that are new to booktube to not buy so many books that you are not sure you're going to enjoy. Utilize your library, buy an ebook. It's cheaper and it will allow you to figure out what you actually like about books, which genres you enjoy. As the years go by, people usually start to read less, which is quite logical because we start our channels when we are still teenagers or in college and we have much more time. I know people always complain about college, but have you ever had a full-time job? It is a huge time sucker, so people read significantly less. For me, I've read 68 books in 2014, and this number dropped in 2018 to 38 books. I think in 2014 I read a lot of books other people were reading, and I've had a lot of 3-star ratings at the end of the year because I had no idea what I really liked and I needed to try a lot of things. I will also tell you that in 2015 I read 85 books, which is even more than in 2014, but I think I've started later in 2014 and for that reason had less books on my reading challenge. What's interesting for me is the amount of queer books that I've read throughout the years. I've never hidden the fact that I'm a lesbian on this channel because I have a lot of that in my regular life, and it's not something I wanted to keep a secret. So I've always been pretty open about that and I've read queer books. In 2014 I read 28 queer books and 40 non-queer books. In 2015, 32 versus 53. In 2016, 20 versus 21. You can see that the number of queer books compared to the non-queer books is increasing. Then in 2017, 32 versus 22. I was very into queer books in 2017. And then in 2018, 26 versus 12. So I'm glad that I grew into my full queer potential. I think that books with queer characters are always going to resonate with me more, and it's just the fact of life because I'm queer. It's the stories that I find entertaining because I recognize myself in them. I also think that the straight books have a bigger readership anyway. Why should I waste my time championing these books that other people will hype and promote on their channels when I can do that for books with queer characters and books that I actually care deeply about. The other interesting data that I have for you is how many 5-star queer books I had compared to 5-star non-queer books throughout the years. And the numbers make it very clear that I do prefer queer books. So in 2014 I've had 9 queer books versus 6 non-queer books. Then 2015, 10 versus 9. Then 2016, 7 versus 4. 2017, 4 versus 3. And 2018, 7 versus 2. Always more queer books versus straight books. I also have average rating stats throughout the years, and I have to say that the average rating increased, which I'm very happy about. Some people say that they become more critical with years and that they like less books, which is logical but also not a good way to approach this hobby, in my opinion. It sucks all the joy from you to read books that you don't like. Personally, I'm very frustrated when I read a bad book. I don't want to finish it. I don't want to make a review where I tear the author's work apart because some other people are going to enjoy this book and it's going to be a perfectly good book for them. I'm not a big fan of channels that made their reputation on tearing books apart. There are a selection of them. I've never thought that I'm going to see something similar to T-Spiel on BookTube at all. And I also believe that some of these people that build their reputation on tearing things apart are aspiring writers. So good luck to them, because if they bomb, they're going to fall hard because of all the videos they've made about other people doing a poor job writing their books. This is everything that I want to say on this topic. My average reading moved from 2014 3.6 to 3.7 in 2018, and I've also had 3.8 in 2017, which is a good reading. It's mostly 4s and 5s with a sprinkle of 3s in there, which is unavoidable because you don't know if you're going to enjoy the book until you pick it up. You don't know if you're going to enjoy the writing, which is very, very subjective. Some people like descriptive writing, some people like more dialogue versus description. Some people enjoy clipped, very minimal writing. It is very much a matter of taste, and there is no bad taste when it comes to it. All the books that are going through a traditional publisher are edited by a professional editor, and I don't think that many people that are part of BookTube are in any way, shape or form are professional editors and have a proper skill set to critique someone's writing. You might not like a certain type of writing, but that is just your personal opinion. So when I review books and I say that I didn't like the writing, it's just me, the person, not liking the writing, not me, a professional editor, not liking the writing, because I'm not a professional editor. Some interesting stats on adult versus young adult books that I've read throughout the years is telling me something I knew, which is I've read more young adult books my first year on YouTube, 40 books, versus 25 adult books, one new adult book and two middle grade books. But throughout the years, the number of adult books that I read became grander, and in 2015 I read 56 adult books and 27 young adult books, and this trend continued throughout the years till 2018. I read much more adult books. I read much more adult books in general, which I think is the reason why my audience is my audience. I don't have many people under 20 years old watching my channel. My biggest audience is women in their 20s and 30s. And I'm really happy with this audience because I can curse, I can make sexual jokes, which I really do like making. The other thing that is not completely a surprise for me is the amount of ebooks that I'm reading compared to physical books. So in 2014 I read 38 ebooks and 28 physical books, which is a lot of physical books. And by year 2018 the numbers changed so much. I've read 29 ebooks and only one physical copy. Wow. I was aware that is a problem for a very long time now. I know that I don't read a lot of physical copies because when I'm at home, it's the only time when I can read a physical copy. I don't like carrying a book around. Physical copies are usually very heavy. I also have an issue with my attention span when I'm reading a physical copy. So ebooks were really great for me and are life-saving when it comes to reading. And the other thing that I've noticed is that in 2014 I read 2 audiobooks, and in 2018 this number bumped up to 8, which is a new thing that is happening with my reading. I listen to more audiobooks. I do listen to more media in general. I am listening to podcasts, to music, and to audiobooks. From these stats I've also gathered that most of my books are the books that I found through BookTube or Goodreads. And I don't go to Instagram or Twitter or book blogs for many book recommendations. I honestly don't really enjoy Twitter. I think it's a very toxic environment where people are trying to drag other people for the sake of likes and retweets, which is not helpful, not productive, and cheap laughs, in my opinion, are never good laughs. For a moment I really liked Instagram for the aesthetic purposes, but I've never read the captions because I've never cared about them. I think that I would get more into book podcasts this year and would get my recommendations there because at the moment I'm listening to a lot of writing podcasts and I enjoy them. And YouTube is always going to be a thing even if I don't have a lot of time to watch it at the moment. And the popularity of Goodreads as a recommendation source for me is also not surprising. I do prefer to make my own choices. I love sifting through lists, reading synopsises. I never read reviews, or I rarely read reviews because I don't care what other people have to say about a book I'm interested in. If it has a good synopsis, a good cover, and it's listed under the genres that I'm interested in or has certain buzzwords that I'm interested in, I'm going to pick up this book. Well, genre-wise I prefer to read a lot of fantasy, and the number compared to other genres stayed pretty consistent. The genres that I grew into loving is romance, adult romance specifically, and I've also started reading much more contemporary books. Mostly contemporary books with queer characters, so that's not a surprise. But in general, I always thought that I don't like contemporary and I don't read a lot of it. And it was true for the first half of my booktube career, but in the last few years I started reading more contemporaries. Maybe because I finally got what I wanted from them. The romances are something that I felt I started gravitating towards in the recent years. I've been an avid reader of romance novels when I was much younger because I picked up my mother's books and she read so many romances. Romance genre is a very interesting genre because it can feel very stagnant because there is a formula to romance. Rom-coms were also very popular when I was growing up. We don't get a lot of rom-coms coming out at the moment. It's not the most popular genre. We mostly get superhero movies, blockbusters, and I think I missed it because it was one of my favorite genres. I really enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it, especially because I found romances that were inclusive. And even though they continue to give me all the things that I loved about them in the past, they changed enough for me to find them entertaining again. I especially love that we get the same cheesy romance covers. I love them. I know that people hate them, but I love them unironically. I seriously do. I talked a little bit about it in my recent romance recommendation video. There's something about them that reminds me about years when I've read a lot of romance, and it just makes my heart warm. I don't track anything else when it comes to my reading. I've tried tracking the author's identities and their backgrounds, but it quickly turned messy, especially with identities, because I don't think that the author has to put out so much information about them publicly to be considered a good author or to be considered in general. I have a huge problem with own voices movement because it forces authors to come out, and as a person who comes from a conservative background, I understand how difficult it might be and why I wouldn't want to come out in your professional field. Some authors that I've read blatantly did not have a photograph, so I had no idea how they look like. I do read more women in general, and I also do read more Caucasian authors. Obviously, because the publishing world is skewed to white authors. I've noticed that I picked up more books by people of color in the past 2 years, which is good, which means that more books by people of color are published and that I see them on lists and that I see them recommended. That's everything for the video. It turned out to be my commentary on booktube, my commentary on Twitter, my commentary on my reading growth and stuff. A very mixed bag of opinions. In the comments down below you can tell me about the genres you rediscovered after years of not reading them, like I did with the romance genre, or we can talk about your reading tastes, how they were in the past and how they are currently. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon in my next one. Bye!